creating ideas, connecting people, building brands. Isn't that what it's all about? Richmond Corporate Video.
Our speaker, George Barbee. He's from the Darden School, as we said, and I attended Darden back when it wasn't cool. And but I tell you, it's really neat to be part of something that a magazine like the Economist magazine has named the most outstanding graduate business education experience in the world. And I thought that I've never been involved in anything that was the best in the world before. And so for the Darden graduates that are here, congratulations to us, because we made it that way. George is one of the original Batten Fellow faculty members, along with Jim Collins, and not the astronaut, and Malcolm Gladwell, the author. And he's been teaching innovation for the last 15 years at Darden. He's written a book called 63 Innovation Nuggets that he'll talk about today, published in 2015. And Fortune magazine, in their review of that magazine, in the book said, it's tough to find anyone with longer, more varied experience with innovation than George Barbee. He's worked in 40 different companies and founded 3 successful entrepreneurial companies, including the largest independent provider of financial planning in the U.S., which he sold to Price Waterhouse. And he's here today to talk to us about the genius of innovation and creativity. George?
I am very grateful for that lovely introduction, and thank you, Stan and Gary, for founding this group. It is not only grateful to hear that nice introduction, I'm grateful to see a crowd like this getting here at 7:30. I had a little trouble finding it, but what a wonderful way to start the day, and the different locations that you all have used and bring a group like this out is very exciting and very innovative in itself. So, always grateful for the morning paper. And I didn't get my morning tweet this morning. I was up at 5 o'clock trying to look over a few notes, and I didn't get my morning tweet. But the paper did have Trump orders regulations cut to help small business. And what's interesting, the number, there were 679,000 small businesses started this past year. That number blew me away. I had no appreciation of that number. So another thing to be grateful for is just the whole trend in the country and interest in innovation. A group like this, just reflective of it. Another thing about it to be grateful for is that it's terribly humbling to be involved in innovation. There's always something to learn. How many golfers in the crowd? Okay. Golf is also one of those things you never get perfect at. A little closer? Thank you. Can you hear me in the back? Okay, thank you. And don't hesitate to raise your hand back there. If I can't be heard, I'll come closer. So golf is always in front of us to perfect ourselves, and I think the same is true of innovation, and we'll talk a little bit about that this morning. I think I'll start with a story on myself, which was a little bit humbling. About 16 years ago, a couple of weeks before Christmas, I got a call from the dean of the business school at Darden, and he said, he said some of the nice things that that we just heard, and he said, 40 countries, we're lucky enough to get on the Today Show. He said, we want you to be our first faculty fellow. And I went, Ted, what is a fellow? And he thought, it was a very long silence. He thought for about 15 seconds, and he said, I don't know either, but we'll figure it out together. And I hung up the phone with a smile, and it took me about 2 days to realize that this is exactly what I wanted to do. I hadn't been aware of it, but I'd always been drawn to a blank page. I didn't like to do something that somebody else had done. I just was drawn to the fact that it was a blank page, and we were going to figure this out together, and they're still figuring it out. And that sort of experimentation is what I think keeps us all young and excited. So let me start with what be a brief set of goals. Talk a little bit about inspiring innovation. Why would somebody take 2 years out of their life to write a book? And I'll give you a few seconds on that. And then there are some personal aspects that we share in the book around innovation. And then there's some organizational aspects. I mean, we all get personal innovator's cramp, right? I mean, all of a sudden you get stuck. But a lot of us are also in organizations where the organization is stuck. And we've tried to have a good sprinkling of those. I'll cover a couple of those nuggets, and then we'll end with Q&A. So there's a lot to cover in a brief set of time, but I'm going to just ask a question or two of the group. How many have a leaning? I'm going to talk about where you might have gone to school just to get a sense. How many have a leaning toward University of Richmond? Okay. How about a leaning toward William and Mary? Okay. University of Virginia? Oh, that's impressive. And VCU? Great. And any other schools?
No, how Virginia Tech.
Okay. Is Virginia Tech in Virginia? Thank you for walking into that. How many in their last, if you're retiring, and I don't think anybody has ever retired that's interested in innovation, how many in their current or their last, with their last employer, was in a group of 10 or fewer employees? Okay, that's good. How about under 200, not including those people that, okay? And how about, let's just go the other side of it, over 1,000? Wow. Well, that is incredible diversity in itself. I was going to pick a couple of different nuggets depending on where the leaning was, so that doesn't make it easy. I'll have to think about that as we go along. Let's start with just the concept of inspiring and framing innovation. One of the things that has Steve Jobs was a genius, right? And Steve was a great master of invention. And what we're going to slant it a little bit later, a little bit differently today, and talk about innovation versus invention. And Steve did a lot of things, but one of the things he did was he left many of us feeling quite insecure and insufficient, in the sense that most of us are not great inventors. But point number one I'd like to make is that most of us are far better at innovation than we give ourselves credit for. And maybe it's because Steve Jobs and other great inventors have raised a very high bar, but I think it's also part of our educational system, part of our we're often told no, or we're forced to bring things into a very narrow scope early in life. So part of what inspired me to write this book is that not only did I have 500 students, engineers, accountants, people that came from traditionally narrow focused areas, and we found that they could be inspired and brought to become much more innovative than they had ever imagined or given themselves credit for. So that leads to point number 2, which is it's both teachable and learnable. That is what inspired me to write this book, because I wish I had somebody coaching me early on and leading some of the direction that I went down way too many blind alleys. And I think most of us who have been involved around innovation have that opportunity to make mistakes. So that's why I took a couple of years out. And what I'd like to do now is go to a couple of personal nuggets. Tom did a lot better than I am. I'm going to read. Tom did it from memory on his poetry. I guess the first thing around this is how many of us really think we're good observers? How many of us take time out to really be quiet, be by ourselves, unplug, put our cell phone away, not just on silent because you can feel the vibration. Just take time out to observe something. And the first nugget I want to read you is around the art of observing. And see if this triggers something in your mind. This is something we all can do, and I'm going to invite you after our session this morning is to find 20 minutes today to do something like this. Most successful innovators have a keen sense of observation. The good news is that it's an art and it can be improved at any level. Take time out, put yourself in listen and receive mode. Look around you. Make time to do this when you are alone. Observe what is innovative and make notes. Now, some of us may have taken time out to observe, but how many actually make notes as you're doing it? Set the goal of at least one observation exercise per day. Review your list each week. Have the quality of your observations improved over time. And I submit that virtually 100% of you, if you do this, will find that you get better and better at this very, very quickly. Ask a like-minded friend or a business colleague to try the same exercise and compare notes. You'll have fun and get better at observing. Innovation is all around us. Look for it. All of us can do this, and it improves with practice. Now, the thought here is that these nuggets, no one is all that different, but they are simple. They're things that you can remember easily, and if you're leading an organization, the simplicity, not the simpleness of it, but the simplicity and the memorableness of it can help spread it in the organization. So let's play, what's a observation? What's something that we've all done but maybe haven't observed? And the format here is you do a nugget on one page and then there's an anecdote or an example. And what occurs to me, since most everybody here has flown, gotten clogged in the airport, what did we do 10 years ago when we went to the airport with our luggage? Pulled up in the car, what did we do? Red cap. We had a red cap. This group is old enough to remember red caps. And then what happened? What replaced the red cap? Wheels. Wheels, smart cards. And we were charged $2 to wheel. But that was not too bad, but depending on what you tipped a red cap as to whether or not it was a better deal. And then after smart card, wheels, somebody said wheels on big luggage, right? And then what happened? The airlines got smart and started charging us for big luggage, 25, 50 bucks. Then what happens? Wheels on small luggage. And we have the opportunity to get, our bags to go in the overhead. And then what do the airlines have to do? Bigger overheads, so it can take the small wheel luggage. You get the point that this has been going on around us. The other day I just noticed, and shame on me that I hadn't noticed this earlier, is that the wheels are no longer something you pull behind you, but the wheels are going along so you don't mess your back up. Now, what's the latest innovation that very smart travelers and customers are doing? Okay. Well, they are mailing, but to me, it is the thing that great insight breeds innovation. People are realizing that because the flights are so full, they're wheeling their small bag up to the check-in and they say, we're overcrowded in the overheads. If you'd like to check your bag through, we'll do it on a complimentary basis. So people are taking their small bag and shipping it at no cost to their final destination. And then maybe they have their second bag, which they put in the overhead. Well, the point here is that observation and observing these kinds of things are all around us. And I just think that's a good example of innovation. And just think of your senses. What are our 5 senses? We've got, seeing, what we see, that's what we tend to think of as observing. Hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. And what's our 6th sense? Intuition. Just intuition, just an overall gestalt perception. And I'm going to guess that a lot of the ladies in the room have a little better sense of that than the men. I don't know why I feel that, but I do sense that they have a better sense of this overall gestalt, just following their senses. So that's an example of observation. It's observation 19. I'm going to try one other. The art of transferring. I'll make it, maybe I won't read this one, the idea of you rise up to 30,000 feet and you say, if something over here is innovative, how can we transfer that aspect or that uniqueness to another category or another situation? And I think this is something that is actually easier than the art of observing, just taking the time out. And what it really, the basis of this is that there are very few things that are truly 100% innovative. Usually there's a borrowing and a taking of something or some element or some series of elements from one category to another. And so that's the nugget, but what's an example of it? And I had one happen to me just a couple of months ago. How many here have been in a Ritz hotel? Okay. What happens when you go into a Ritz hotel and you have a question like, where's the fitness center or where's the pool? Okay, what they do is they don't say, over there, George, you know, take a left, then a right. They escort you. They take you, and along the way, they invite you in conversation, and there's a feeling of welcoming, and it just makes you feel special. So the concept then is escorting. Where and how can that be transferred? This is called assuring how you want to be regarded. How often do you get to take time out to think about who you really are? Where have you been? Where do you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, further out? For your own satisfaction. And how do you want to be regarded by others? At home and at work. Thinking like this can often be a journey. It doesn't happen overnight, and it can and will change. Try it. Take notes. Did you hear that theme? Write it down. It's so easy to forget. Take notes and keep them so you can refer back. Review your notes periodically, annually at the very least. Teach yourself. This exercise and process is one of the keys to creativity and happiness. It is part of the balance that allows us to sustain a high level of productivity and creativity. Where we are headed is directly in our control. In this process lies our true commitment to be more creative and innovative. Thank you very much.